Well guys, the past 2 weeks have been a roller coaster for the Lakers and really Laker fans too. Obviously the big one being Luka Doncic, that being a blockbuster trade that absolutely nobody saw coming, not even Anthony Davis or Luka Doncic. But then thereafter making another big trade, and a really shocking trade, trading for Mark Williams who was thought to become their franchise center or eventually down the line and pair him with Luka Doncic for hopefully the next decade. But as we all found out, that trade fell through. Following the failed physical of Mark Williams, the Lakers made the call to cancel the trade, and although the NBA is yet to finalize that, there's about a 99.9% chance that they will side with the Lakers per reports. So with that being said, did the Lakers make the right choice? Will they regret it? Or are they currently being validated by that decision? We'll talk about that and why I'm currently leaning in that direction. But before we get too far into it, don't forget to check out g2a.com for the best deals in your favorite games, credits, and everything digital entertainment. You can check them out in the video description down below. But now getting back to our topic. And again, with the Mark Williams trade, definitely a lot to factor in here. Even with the Lakers canceling the trade, finding an issue with Mark Williams and actually multiple issues per reports, from Shams Charania citing that there are multiple issues with him. Not only one issue and not even a back issue, but multiple issues with him. And quick side note, yes, while they probably couldn't make the trade yet, no, they can't try to readjust the trade. They can't go to the Hornets and say, hey, we'll make the trade if you take out Dalton Knecht or a first round draft pick, and try to readjust the trade in some way to benefit them. No, they can't do that. I've seen a few of you commenting about that, so I did want to address it. We're past the trade deadline, so they're not allowed to make a readjustment. They can either make the trade with the previous trade offer, or stick to their guns and rescind the trade, but they can't go back and try to adjust it. However, even with that being said, this would not be the first time that trade eventually went through, even after a failed physical. I mean, dating back to only 2 years ago, Golden State went through with the trade despite finding a health issue with the player they're trading for, that being Gary Payton II. As part of the trade that sent away James Wiseman and 3 second-round draft picks, sending Wiseman to Detroit, sending Gary Payton II to Golden State, and they went through with that trade, despite Gary Payton II failing a physical, showing a core muscle issue that eventually did sidetrack him for a few months. But again, they went through with it despite the issue, and they might have actually won that trade in hindsight. And with that being said, should the Lakers factor that in, maybe go through with the trade despite the risk, and maybe reap the short-term benefits rather than looking at the long-term picture here? Well, that's definitely up to interpretation, but in my opinion, probably not, and I think they're currently being validated for that decision too. For one, the Gary Payton II trade, and that trade I brought up, is not nearly as big compared to the Mark Williams trade. Whether you're talking about players involved, draft picks, or whatever it might be, it's not nearly as big. Yes, there was a former number 2 overall draft pick, James Wiseman, that was involved in the trade. I think we can all agree even at that point, he was widely regarded as a bust and not a big part of the trade, and not even as good compared to Gary Payton II. But then with the Mark Williams trade, we're talking about giving up a lot more for him. Not only Dalton Knecht, who I think is a big part of that validation for them, a former first round draft pick for them less than a year ago, and a guy that's showing and has showed plenty of potential for their team. Then on top of that, an unprotected first round draft pick, which is quite a bit to give up for anyone. Not only the fact that it's a tradable first round draft pick for them, their only tradable first round draft pick they had left, but then the fact that it's unprotected. Then even after that, a first round draft pick swap, which might not sound like much, but pick swaps are a big part of controlling your team's future, and they obviously want to control their own future. So between all of that, and yes, I guess you could factor in Cam Reddish too, that's a lot to give up for a guy that had multiple issues with a failed physical. I'm not sure I would give that up. I wouldn't take that risk even with him having a need at center. That's more short-sighted rather than long-sighted, not trying to factor in their team's future, trying to win only this year, which whether or not you think they can or cannot, that's maybe not worth the risk and not worth the price for a guy that might have major issues in the future. And like I said, I think they're being validated for not going through with it. I mean, talk about draft picks all you want, a lot of people don't like to talk about them, and in large part for the fact that you can't name a face to that draft pick, or production for that fact. Yes, it might be a good player you take with that draft pick, or a good player you trade with that draft pick, who knows, but you can't name a face or immediate production with that draft pick. But that's not the case with Dalton Knecht. They already made that draft pick, a former first round draft pick for them, and you can't point to immediate production with him. Even make an argument that's better, or could be better than Mark Williams. Whether you're talking about the short term, or long term, or even right now again. I'm not sure I go that far, but definitely a lot to like with Dalton Knecht. this season averaging about 9.4 points per game, 3 rebounds per game, 1 assist per game, and shooting very well from both the field and 3-point line, about 46% from the field and 36% from beyond the arc. All around really good and been responding really well to the trade. Definitely awkward for him, but in his first game back with their team, dropped 10 points with 3 made 3-point shots, 2 of which were very high difficulty by the way, and responding really well to that trade and simply wanting to play ball. Then after that game, immediately head to the Rising Stars game and put on a show last night. Made some 3-point shots, threw down an incredibly vicious and probably anger relieving dunk, and is now heading to the All-Star game too. No, maybe not named an All-Star, but being part of the Rising Stars team that won the game, and is now being rewarded by heading to the All-Star game, getting to match up with an All-Star team in the new All-Star game format, and in fact, that team will contain LeBron James. So between all of that, Dalton Knecht's been responding really well to the trade, playing well after the trade, really showing up on All-Star weekend, and showing what he can be for their team in the short-term to long-term future. But then even going back to Mark Williams here, I think it says a lot about the Charlotte Hornets not wanting to take him back. Obviously yes, they won't waive him or nothing dumb like that, I don't believe that, but simply the fact that they want the trade to go through, they want Dalton Knecht, they want the draft picks, and they want that trade to go through. Whether it's to correct their reputation, which I think we often forget to factor in here, it's a pretty bad look for them right now, and if they don't correct it, it definitely will jeopardize their ability to make trades in the future, and they definitely don't want that. Or then for the draft compensation, definitely a lot to get here and a lot for a rebuilding team like the Charlotte Hornets. One unprotected first-round draft pick, that's always a lot no matter who you're trading for. Then a first-round draft pick swap, both of which are from the Lakers and definitely viewed as valuable with their future going forward. A little bit muddy with LeBron James, so definitely good draft compensation. But then finally Dalton Knecht, the biggest prize here again in my opinion, production that you can point to, not simply a draft pick and a maybe, a guy that might help your team or a draft pick that might help your team in the future, but immediate production right now and stuff you can point to. Like I talked about with the points per game and 3-point shooting, everything that he brings on the court, it's so much more than that and really a unique player. Even in the modern NBA where 3-point shooting is prevalent, taking more 3-point shots, then becoming a bigger part of an offense and all around being more offensive centric around the 3-point line, it's still very difficult to find a guy like Dalton Knecht. Not simply a good 3-point shooter, or a guy that is or might become known for 3-point shooting, but one that might be in that top 1% of 3-point shooting. And don't take it from me, I didn't come up with that or say that first. That directly came from their head coach, Redick, who he himself is in that top 1%. So if he thinks that, if he's seen enough to say that about him, and all the plays that he's thrown up for Dalton Knecht thus far, he probably had a really tough time trading away Dalton Knecht and wanting that trade to happen, and is probably pretty happy about getting Knecht back on their team. Not only for this season and what he can do for their team right now, but definitely in the long-term future as well. And if there's anyone to pair with Dalton Knecht, a head coach at that, a guy to help develop him and help him become his best version of himself, it definitely would be Redick. So from that standpoint, I'm happy to have Dalton Knecht back, not only for what he did during the Rising Stars game, not only for the long-term potential and what he might become under Redick, but for what he's shown with their team already too. Can't forget when he was part of their team's starting lineup, the guy averaged 14.3 points per game, 5 rebounds per game, shot 47.5% from the field and about 40% from 3, and that's a pretty good snippet of what he might become, and in the not so distant future at that. And with all of that being said, no, I don't think they should regret turning down the Mark Williams trade. Yes, they might have a need for a center, but not one with a major injury risk and a big price tag with him. And if you ask me, a big part of that validation does happen to be Dalton Knecht. But what do you guys think? How do you feel about the trade very likely not to go through? How do you feel about Dalton Knecht and him coming back to the Lakers and what he might be able to prove with their team in light of the Mark Williams trade? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. But I think that'll pretty much do it for this one. And if you enjoyed the video, then I'll greatly appreciate it if you dropped a like, subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and hit that notification bell to never miss out when I upload a video. But as always, thank you for watching and have a great day or night.